stop you from living up to your potential. It holds you back. It hurts the...
I remember saying something like, I feel a bit lighted.
Fear and Loathing. While the book was made in 1971 as a bio and an autobiography, things are rampant. Anti-drug movements are starting to take hold as the war on drugs is beginning to take hold. This is an analysis of a story about drugs, addiction, fear, and the American dream. Before getting into the analysis, I would like to at least give a quick reference to three things. 1. What was the director on during the making of this movie? 2. Hunter S. Thompson. And lastly, 3. I will not be talking about the book because that was published in 1971, as this is an analysis of the movie and my interpretation of it. Not the book, but I do recommend checking it out, which I will have in the link below. This is Future Finn talking. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello, this is Mary Martello regarding your COVID-19 relief payment.
We're gonna be here for a while. The original director was Alex Cox, who unfortunately passed away December 12, 2019, but during early development was cut off from the film due to creative differences, which was actually documented in the documentary Breakfast with the Hunter. Shortly after that, they hired a new director and screenwriter, Gilliam. The GOAT! Who, in an interview, said this about the script. When we were writing the script, we really tried not to invent anything. We sort of cannibalized the book. Which, if you're an idiot, it means the book is pretty much the movie. Which then also explains why they left the time setting in the early 70s, because he described the book as an artifact, and was inspired by the backdrop of the Vietnam War and a perceived loss of the American dream, which also offers reasoning to the character's actions. Thank you, Wikipedia. Hunter was a realist journalist, and was in fact the main character of the movie. He also founded the Gonzo movement, incorporating himself into the story, of course. He also was roommating with Johnny Depp in preparation for the role, but tragically committed suicide in 2005. Rest in peace, good man. When writing this analysis, I really took the time to myself for this one. I wanted to articulate the feeling of drugs, which unfortunately I wouldn't be able to do, but I could still immerse myself by studying people, watching movies, watching videos, TV, anything. And let me say, the experience was not fun. Learning about addiction, depression, suicide, and many other things during the journey of the video was very depressing and tragic. It led me down a trail of death, suicides, and just depression. But in that discovery, I watched Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But while watching this movie, I discovered something. And that thing is addiction. Sure, as the movie is just a fun interpretation of two partners going to Las Vegas doing crazy things, I see it differently. In my opinion, I personalize it as a man who goes into this undiscovered territory and loses his mind and himself. But he has some sort of introspect into himself and starts to question everything, while being submerged in his own demons as well. Which, to submerge those demons, he uses drugs that wouldn't be far-fetched, as Hunter S. Thompson dealt with depression and physical diseases as well, which is why maybe his main character, Raoul Duke, does drugs. But this would be coped with addiction, such as in the movie, his character is plagued by addiction of drugs, but in real life he was plagued by his addiction to writing, which isn't a bad thing, which over time also really began to shed light on himself. This took an effect on me. I felt fearful, as seeing people be addicted to their craft, their demons, and their own ways of conformity, which, in most cases, is drugs. It caused a fear of addiction within me. It changed who the person I am, and it changes how I view things now. In the movie, we see the effects of addiction through the character's actions. For example, when Rao, in the beginning of the movie, opens the package, and there are many drugs, or when they keep taking drugs throughout their adventure. But most notably, we see it happen when they go to see Debbie, and Raul takes cocaine, and his mannerisms show that he is literally twitching like a crack addict, and it's insane. Or when they get ready to go to the circus, when they feed their addiction by inhaling
Devil ether. It makes you behave like the village drunkard in some early Irish novel. Total loss of all basic motor skills. Blurred vision, no balance, numb tongue. The mind recoils in horror.
we are trapped in the land of chaos. They are addicted to it much like how we are addicted to the lights in this scene, addicted to this narrative, how we don't want to let go because we know we would have to come back to the harsh reality known as life. So, like our characters, we journey into the unknown, blinded by the faculties that behold us. Then, just like that, the come down happens. As Raul states, the acid is long gone, the ether wearing off, but the mescaline staying strong. Then, the fear.
Everything goes wrong. Some angry Rotarian shoves you and you think, what's happening here? What's going on? When you hear yourself mumbling.
Don't expect a pull. No fault of mine. Good women.
Ether is the perfect drug for Las Vegas. In this town, they love a drunk. Fresh meat.
Come on, buddy. Come on.
So they put us through the turnstiles.
The come down. Again. As Gonzo loses it, Raul understands and leaves, and he starts to reflect on his journey. In this dim, temporarily quiet, sober-filled stop. The American dream. What does it really mean?
Out of the land of the tobacco plant come a tall, hard-riding, long, lean bloke, feared by his friends and enemies alike, called by the name of Johnny Smoke.
Learn to enjoy losing. Gonzo has lost his mind, yet we enjoy it. We learn to enjoy losing by enjoying our characters lose their mind. Basically, by using deadly substances, they start to turn on each other. In the background, there's a flag. Is this the American dream? What is the American dream? Then we go back to 1965, to the great San Francisco acid wave, where, in the background, Don't You Want Somebody to Love playing in the background, where we see a man, Raul, a victim of the drug explosion, a natural street freak, addicted to the high, then back to reality. Some more self-loathing to his own words, to, quote-unquote, the peak that never comes again. We then see the true American dream. The protests, the riots, the backlash from the Vietnam War. The madness was everywhere. In his mind, the madness never left. He wants to ride that wave again, addicted to its nature. Gonzo's gone, panic starts to set in, and as he sobers up, he then leaves to leave Las Vegas. And the demons behind, while paranoia sets in, he has to go back. Duke is sober. He's correctly thinking in the right mind of space now. He feels brightened, but not for long. As in the movie, the tone changes to this rejuvenated feeling. There's colorful patterns on the walls, the lighting, the colors, everything is more clear now, unlike earlier when everything was much more darker and chaotic. And in my mind, I think colors play a significant role in this film. For example, as I stated earlier in the film, we are haunted by red, dark red. But later in the film, we get light pink and white. But then back later in the film, we get dark red again. And obviously, colors play a role because when they're on drugs or on substances, and they start to lose control, we get dark red, as showing as in the mind state, everything's scrambled, everything's going bad, everything's, going to hell. But when we get white, we get everything is clearer, you can see better, you actually can think, you're sober. Even if you are on drugs, you're not losing control. You have control over it and you're fine. Then we get some conflict within Duke. He wants to have sanctuary, but he's trapped in this place with drugs and he can't get out. Later, then at an anti-drug convention, the doctor there talks about addiction, calling them possessed as if they are demons, which is a metaphorical way of saying that drugs are demons because people succumb to drugs just like how people succumb to demons. And it is true. And he talks about how people being on drugs is seen as cool. My opinion on this is that it's very true. Nowadays, with kids, everything, it's seen as cool to be on drugs. It's seen as this aesthetic, which it shouldn't, because drugs are bad. No matter what drug you're doing, it's bad. But that's just my subjective opinion. Characters are in denial. You know, them being addicts, they pretty much don't care. They stick out, and they're not being blinded, but still, they're very naive of their actions. After that, Duke pretty much goes back to his apartment, and then here's one thing that I like to point out. War footage. War footage is constantly on the TV. We will get to that later. Then, in fear, we cut to two druggies in jail, awaiting trial, as Lucy is accusing them of what they did. As she is dressed in proper clothing, this is my interpretation of a representation of what America was like in the 70s and in the 80s. As the anti-drug war basically ravages on, it shows what America should be, this pure, cut-clean thing, but is plagued by drugs, as seen with Al and Gonzo. Then, Raul snaps back. He wants to find sanctuary again, but he is then dragged down by his demons and his addiction. As it crawls back up, he starts to take a lip on adrenochrome. This is a side note, but if you don't know what adrenochrome is, it's the adrenaline gland. It's basically the human adrenaline gland. It produces adrenaline, and it's a drug that people actually take. And he takes a lick, and he takes another lick, and then he decides to drink the whole thing. And he starts to succumb to, figuratively, his demons, because Gonzo feeds into his addiction even more, and then he turns into a demon. Now, in the film, it's portrayed as, like, you know, him tripping balls, right? But I see it as, once again, he's seeing his demon right in front of him. That's his demon. He just succumbs. And he falls on the floor, and he almost ODs. And then the American anthem starts to play. He finally found the American dream. Comes to in water. He's dazed and confused, and it's almost like a rebirth. The reason I say as this is as a rebirth is because in many multiple films, characters are reborn through water as a change of experience and as a reflection of themselves. Then it's almost as if Raul loses his complete mind. He starts to, you know, have an out-of-body experience, but this also kind of helps with the movie too, because the movie starts to lose continuity. We start getting these flashbacks that we didn't see in the movie, and they make zero sense. Much like how his mind is probably feeling right now after taking massive amounts of cocaine and adrenochrome. This further proves my point by him saying this. The possibility for physical and mental collapse is very real. No sympathy for the devil. Then I realized this figment of reality, after him saying that, isn't a real thing. This is all his mind. His mind is scrambled and chaotic, just like the apartment. While he tries to recollect things, he tries to fix his mind, as many almost ODing people would do. They would try to remember what they last did, and they try to recollect themselves. They try to regroup and rejuvenate and try to understand what they just did, but they can't, because everything is broken, much like how his mind is, as he understands that he let Vegas consume who he was, and there will always be a part of him that is trapped in his mind, trapped in his craft, and trapped in everything. He sadly understands his demons, but as he leaves Las Vegas, he has to come back to reality and sanity. And that's what the true Fear and Loathing is.